are the Crusades. I'll spend a little bit of time with that. By the time you get into the High Middle Ages, not only are Europeans in general kind of experiencing some new things and progress, and rebirth, new discoveries, and all that, the church is growing too. Christianity is growing. The Roman Catholic Church is becoming a very, very, very powerful institution. It had been previously, but it's really going to get its legs here, I think, in this era. But you don't call for a crusade asking thousands of people to go off to a whole other part of the planet unless you have some air of authority. You're not going to just answer to anybody. So I think the church is very powerful here. Of course, what's in the church? We're talking about, for these folks, the Roman Catholic Church. So they call for a crusade. What happens, of course, is the Muslims come in to the Holy Land, occupy Jerusalem. The Seljuk Turks, basically, is what we're talking about. Then there is perceived on the part of the papacy and other folks that we need to take Christian knights down there and shove those people out. Just engage in a holy war, onward Christian soldiers kind of thing. There's going to be about 8 of these crusades total. Most of them are abject failures. The first one, which probably causes the other 7, the first one's the most successful. That is. Once you've had a success, you figure, well, let's just do that again. So the first crusade, called in 1095 by Urban II, you see toward the bottom left column on page 18. And of course the word crusade comes from the Latin, it means taking the cross. Literally taking the cross. Some people will be carrying the cross. Knights, folks like that, might be wearing a tunic, which you'd have a cross emblazoned on it. Shields like this, a red cross is very common here during the First Crusade. So you're literally taking the cross to the infidels, these infidels from the Christian perspective. Now, this is expensive, and you go a long way off. You're way out of your neighborhood. You're traveling 1,500, 2,000 miles. Why would you want to do this? Well, there are reasons. You see these on the top of the right-hand column. You go off and engage in a crusade. You become a privileged person. You don't have to pay taxes while you're on a crusade. You can get your debts canceled. I mean, there are some things that would be beyond your faith, advantages to going off on these deals. But again, it's very expensive stuff, and not everybody can go. We're talking about thousands of people total, not gigantic numbers. But when you talk about 3,000 knights and 12,000 infantry, that's not a small force, but again, it's not gigantic either. So there are plenty of folks that are engaged in this. This one succeeds. They do get down there, engage in some fights, do recover the Holy Land, set up a Latin kingdom, basically. Pilgrims can come in, protected by knights and various stations along the ways, the hospitallers, those kinds of folks. The Knights Templar come in here and all those kinds of big people. So again, a very successful crusade. The ones that follow, not quite so much. You get a second crusade called in the 1140s by Bernard of Clairvaux. We sing some of his songs in church sometimes. I think you're right. Oh, Sacred Head Now Wounded. Is that a Bernard of Clairvaux song? I think it is. So very influential guy. 2 leaders there. Louis, of course, if the kings don't sign on, you're probably not going to succeed in the first place. So Louis VII, the Byzantine Emperor Conrad III. You'll notice there we have Western Christians and Eastern Christians working side by side with mutual goals. Don't always. We'll see that in just a second. Again, they don't even get down to Jerusalem. They succeed in capturing Damascus, and that's about it. The third crusade is the one we call the Crusade of the Kings. So we got big names here. We got Richard the Lionheart, Richard I, Richard the Lionheart of England. His cousin across the pond, literally cousin, Philip the Augustus of France. And then over in Germany, Frederick Barbarossa, Frederick the Red Beard, Barbarossa refers to. So we've got the French, the Franks, the English, and the Germans all agreeing to this thing simultaneously. That's a big deal. Now, this one kind of unravels. Richard and Philip kind of go together. They get into a tiff. Philip says, all right, forget this, I'm going home. I'll take my army and go home. So he doesn't even continue the crusade. So Richard continues on. Frederick's going separately. He actually gets down to the Holy Land, or close to, gets to the coast. There's different versions of what happens, but he drowns. One version is he's on the ship. Okay, here we are, boys, and we're going to accomplish great things, and off we go. And he jumps off into the water, wearing chainmail, sings like a rock, and he's gone. So that leaves Richard on his own. Now, eventually, Richard gets down there, and some of this is pretty bloody stuff. Crusades are nasty. Nasty, violent. He captures thousands of Muslims, cuts their heads off because he can. We say Christian Knights. That's an awkward. It's almost contradictory. He gets down there. The Sultan says, "Well, hang on. We worked this out." He offers his sister to Richard for as a bridal price. He says, "Well, tempting, but no. I'm already married, so that's not." But they hammer it out, basically, short of going into combat. And basically, the Sultan says, "Okay, you want to come down and make pilgrimages to Jerusalem? Fine. Well, you're room for everybody." So maybe that's success, I guess, in one way. Of course, it doesn't happen the way they anticipate. The Fourth Crusade is when it goes completely off the rails. The Fourth Crusade is called, in 1198, now we've had 100 years of these things happening. The Knights and other folks get down, because there's always followers and Klingons, these types of people who just want to go. They're not Knights, but they're there. They get down to Venice, anticipating that they can get passage across the Adriatic over to over the Holy Land. And the Venetian merchants basically said, "Well, we can get you over there, but it's going to cost you." And they charge such expensive rates for passage, nobody can afford it. And then they work out a deal. The Venetian merchants, the Christian merchants of Venice will say, "All right, Christian Knights, do us a favor and we'll give you passage. Across the Adriatic, there is a city called Zara. We would like for you to go over and knock that out. They're a trade rival to us." Okay, fine and dandy. The irony, of course, is Zara is what? A Christian city. So you have Christian knights being gouged by Christian merchants and now told to go over and kill Christians, and we'll get you to the Holy Land so you can kill Muslims. Well, that's about as a corrupt crusader spirit as you can get. So this goes crazy, goes off the rails. Later crusades don't amount to much. They don't accomplish much at all. The Fifth Crusade, they get to Egypt, that's about it. Sixth, seventh, you've got Louis IX on both of them, a very pious king. But again, just not much is accomplished. There is also, by the way, another crusade that we don't put in the list, called the Children's Crusade of 1212. Absolute nightmare. Somebody decides it would be great to take a whole bunch of kids down to the Holy Land, and by their youth and their purity, they will just dazzle the Muslims and just tell them, "Oh, we just can't stand how pure you all are. We quit, we win." That's a dumb idea. They will round up thousands of mostly orphans, haul them down to southern France. Unscrupulous Christian shippers will get a hold of these folks, these kids, get them on board. Yeah, we'll get them there, and then they sell them to slavery. Now, some of the ships actually get into storms and sink, kids are gone. It's just an absolute destructive system. So the Crusades, I don't particularly care for. I think they're misplaced. I don't think they accomplish much. I understand what they're doing. I get what they're doing. In part, they're doing this, the church is, because it can. That's fine, because we can. Sometimes that makes sense, sometimes it doesn't. So I don't have a lot of good to say about Crusades. Now look, there's a peripheral advantage here for Western Europeans. They get down to the Holy Land and stuff, they see things they don't have. They see windmills and things like that. Hey, that's pretty cool. So they're bringing back ideas about stuff. When we get to cathedrals and we talk about Gothic windows and things, so they probably get some of those ideas from the Arabs. So there are some peripheral things that take place here. Okay, let's talk about some other stuff. Next several pages kind of piece by piece, kind of stand on their own more or less, but they're all indicative of the same time periods things happen here. Town growth. town growth is just going to be phenomenal. We had towns that did survive through the early Middle Ages, the Dark Middle Ages. Not a lot of them, and a lot of them reduced in size. We get a whole other era here where, look, you've always got the need for people to be something other than nobility, knights, and farmers. There's got to be somebody doing something else. Look, a farming economy doesn't produce any cash anywhere. You've got to have trade based on something else. And so you're going to have a lot of these lords who will encourage folks who have other skills to settle close by, set up shop, set up business, set up the blacksmith shop or the French pastry chef or wherever it is. And then we can have a, we can exchange money. We've got a much farther flung series of trade. So towns get established, they get encouraged by the nobles. Maybe land will be given. There'll be new towns established for all kinds of reasons. Usually in places that make sense, a major road or a crossroads or a ford on a river or something where people kind of tend together anyway. And then the town will develop there. They're separate from the Lord's land. There'll be a town established. There'll be a town council established. They'll rule themselves. There'll be a mayor, usually, or a burgermeister or something like that. They'll pay taxes to the local lord. But some of this is handed back in terms of the town being able to take care of itself. Municipal taxes. So they're paying for streets and roads and bridges and those kinds of things. Pretty good system. Now, these towns are crummy. You wouldn't want to live there. These are dark, dirty, unplanned places. There's not a straight street in any of these. You have, like that. That's a little bit more advanced down the roads. But still, not very tall buildings, 2, 3, 4 stories tall. About all you can do in that time period. Mostly simple wooden construction. Streets are hardly streets really. They only have to be wide enough to accommodate a couple of carts, and that's it. So they're not wide. It would not be uncommon for some of these towns to, let's say this is the front, one side of the street, and you would have, say, a shop on the street level, and then maybe the family lives upstairs in the second story. And then, so that's one side of the street, and maybe the other side of the street, right here.
Oh, that's a wide street.
That's a wide street, yeah, it really is. It really is, because it's not uncommon for, okay, let's say it's here, but you're right, it's a little wide. Let's say this is the front over here, and then the second story a lot of times would stick out, out 5, 6, 10 feet, whatever it was, where you cantilever out to. Okay, that's over the street. So even if this is wide, the second floor is coming out here 6 feet. The second floor here is coming out 6 feet. And so you wind up with something less than even the width of this section of seats here, as far as where the sun shines. So they're dark, dirty, crooked, meander, no planning here at all. They're not paved. They're dirty. These are dirty places. There's no sewage systems, generally speaking. Everything that happens in the shop or in the house or the kitchen, there's no garbage pickup. You throw it out. And remember, your front door is right onto the street. Boom, there's no sidewalk. You're in the street. You come out of the house, you're in the street. And the street's just going to be littered all the time with garbage and bones and oyster shells. The dishwater goes out. The chamber pot goes out. Everything goes out the streets. Pigs would roam the streets. They're glad of it. Meaning the people are glad of it, because somebody needs to clean up these streets. It's pig shop. So these are nasty, dirty, dark places. You could smell a town miles out. Like you could smell western towns of the American frontier 150 years ago. You're going to smell it before you see it.
Must have been a lot of disease.
A lot of disease in these places, and of course there's just disease anyway, but yeah, these urban centers. That's one reason why we're talking about Black Death tomorrow. One reason why the Black Death spreads the way it does. It just goes crazy in urban centers. Now, we've got shops, we've got storefronts, you have signs. We all see these pictures, signs over the shop door. Usually no words on it, right? Because most of these people are illiterate anyway, so what's the point? So you got a cobbler's shop, what are you going to put on your sign? Shoe or boot, something like that. You've got a fish shop, fishmonger, stick fish on there. You're the French pastry chef, put a pie on there or something, that kind of thing. Sometimes the shape of the, get like boot, sign might actually be the shape of a boot as opposed to painted on. We've got local barbershops here. They would use the red and white striped poles. We associate with barbershops today. Now remember, barbers are also bloodletters. That's the red and white striped barbershop. So if you need bloodletting, not feeling too good, bloodletting, down to the guy. He'll take care of you. Little pan there on you. You'll feel great. You'll feel lightheaded is what you'll do. Now, it begs the question, why would you want to live there? If that bad, who wants to live there? Yeah. Well, some of that's about skill set you've got. Where else would you sell your pies? What about the woods somewhere by yourself? I'm not going to come to you. There's also something too about towns, and that was, remember, you are free in town. If you're a peasant, serf, bound to somebody else's land, you're not going to be free. There were actually laws at the time in some of these places that said, if you are a serf and you escape from your serf, you run off, and you wind up in a town somewhere. If you live in that town undetected for a year and a day, you're free. Well, there's an incentive. All you got to do is hide out for a year and a day, you're good to go. So that happened from time to time, I'm sure. Now, what kind of growth are we talking about? Last paragraph. In 919, the entire, and there's of course not a single Germany here, but Germany had only 30 towns. There's probably more towns in this county, rural as we are, than Germany had. Of course, Germany had some fairly large places. But anyway, 30 towns in the whole place. By 1125, 200 years later, 150 towns. By 1300, Paris and Venice, populations of about 100,000 people. London, Milan, which is a big place today, about 50,000 people. Now you crowd that many people in a place like this is why we get the filth and the dirt and the smells and all those kind of things that goes with it. The crap, sorry, you what?
So it sounds like they're just lazy. They couldn't just bury their garbage.
Well, I'm sure there were people who did that kind of thing. I mean, look, there are people whose jobs were to clean out the outhouses in town. There were outhouses. I mean, there were the equivalents too. I mean, even Paris, before the sewage system came in the mid-19th century, there were a dozen or so plus public outhouses. There were people who their job was, at the end of every day, they go in these wagons, and they clean out the outhouses, they fill up the wagons with stuff, and they haul them out of town and dump them somewhere else. That's their job. Honey, I'm home. Yeah, I do. Just that we didn't cover all of them. You see kind of concentrations here and there. Look at Italy. Northern Italy. Because what's the deal with Italy? It's all about city-states. There's not a single Italy here. It won't be until the 19th century. There's a whole bunch of city-states. So it was always a very urbanized place. Who's been to one? Ask me. Again, one more way that these people are showing their talent and skill and innovation and inspiration all tied up in the same thing. And how do they do this? In a world where building a 5-story building is rare. In a world lit by fire, now they have the interiors of buildings lit by these kinds of things. Think about that. Think about this crummy world you live in that is so dirty and insecure and dark and nasty and brutish. And you go in a cathedral and it's quiet and it's beautiful, it's ordered, it's clean, it's well swept, it's well lit. It's infinitely taller than any place you've ever been to short of a mountain in your lifetime. Think about what it would be like. Think about the sanctuary part of it. Just think about the instant inspiration that would bring. Our church buildings, do they inspire us? We're pretty utilitarian. I'm not fussing about it. I'm just saying we are. We put our eggs in other baskets.
I was in the chapel this morning, Tim.
Yeah.
Huge.
Going here on campus? Yeah.
Huge.
Okay.
Interior.
Yeah.
The windows.
Yeah. Whole other places. The sense of awe, the connection to God. And you're illiterate, and you come into a place like this. You see things like this. You can't read about the stories in the Bible, but you can see them. Cartoon strip Bible. Graphic novel Bible. You get to see Noah. You can see your Lord. You can see the Virgin Mary. You can see these scenes that you can't imagine otherwise. It's all right there. Now, we're not even dealing with the engineering, what you have to create as an engineer to make these buildings go up so high. Look, they're narrowing the walls, they're going straight up, they're opening up the walls. It's not about dead weight any longer. It's about open an area. Well, how do you hold all that height up? Well, sometimes you don't. Sometimes they didn't do it right, they built them too tall, and they collapsed while they're still building. And then, of course, competition, too. You want to have the cathedral with the higher one, because that's where people want to go. You're going to go visit the cathedral. I want to go to the ones really impressive. So sometimes they went too high, and then they collapsed. And, of course, some of these places today are really struggling just to hold them together. Talking about buildings now 1,000 years old. And they're just starting to pull. The stress of these buildings is just incredible. Look, you have to invent what? You have to invent the flying buttress. Support the wall from the outside. Because that's where the weight wants to go. You bring from probably the Arab world, the Gothic arch. The Gothic arch distributes the weight in a way that will sustain it. There's all the weight of the stone in the wall. The groin vault up in the ceiling. Can I go back on this? How do I press to go back? How do I press to go back?
I think the back arrow. Nope. Sorry.
Thank you. I was saying what? Oh, the groin vault here. Again about the distribution of the weight, the central point. You have to create those things for these buildings to stand up. So this isn't just about pious people creating, buildings of inspiration. You got to design it right in the first place. You got to design it right in the first place. So there is a reinvention of the wheel to make these things go up. So just again, how inspiring they would be, how awestruck you would be, and of course you put thousands of people in these things. A lot of these cathedrals hold 5,000. Hold everybody in town at the time. 5,000 people, 10,000 people on the floor. Now from the air, these look like what? What's the basic shape of these?
Cross.
Cross. Sure. Cross. You've got the altar up front. You've got the transept. You can't see it here. The transept on the side, and the ash on the top. Arm call. But anyway, good point. Of course, these things become sites of pilgrimages themselves, and relics in them, which of course people will give, special qualities to. Look, even the glass itself. There are people who believe that if you went in a cathedral with an illness, if you stood in the light cast through a stained glass window, you will be healed. So, there's a point where, okay, hang on. I'm not quite sure how that works.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about. In addition to that, all the artifacts and such that attract people to these.
Sure, yeah, not just building itself, but whose relic do you have inside? Okay. Now let's look here quickly at, and we'll try to get to that very point here in just a sec. Let's look at medieval universities. One of the things that's happening here is a great trend here in the High Middle Ages is the emphasis on learning. The church, of course, again, has power and money and capacity to do this. We've got the learning guys anyway. So they're going to be creating schools, church schools. You need to be able to educate your priests in the first place. If they're going to do a Latin Mass, okay, they may need to know how to speak Latin. So somebody's got to teach them that stuff. So schools, institutions of learning. The highest aspect of this will be the creation of universities. Some of this had already begun in the Arab world, previously by a couple hundred years or so, 2 or 3. They had universities in Baghdad, they had universities over in Cordoba, Spanish Cordoba. There's several of them, so they take maybe some inspiration from those. First, the earliest chartered university, you'll see down about 2/3 down the left-hand column, University of Paris, 1150. Oxford comes in the 1160s. Have not been to Oxford. She was in the paper in Oxford a few years ago. Fascinating place, absolutely fascinating place. Just how many? A couple dozen colleges within the university system there. Yeah. Oh, it's really impressive stuff. Now, these universities look very different from what a university would look like today. You're talking about Europe or America or whatever. Actually, they're really a guild. Where the masters here are going to be the guys who are learning, be educated. And you would go to a university to learn about something, pretty limited curriculum. You may be studying law or theology or maybe medicine or something like that. They had a lot of majors they didn't have. And a lot of buildings that we're accustomed to, classrooms, gymnasiums, stadiums, laboratories, dormitory theaters, they just didn't have those. What often would the only building would be a rented hall, maybe, or some extension of a church. You would have students. Sometimes students would just rent a hall, and then they would hire professors to come in and then teach. There's all kinds of ways this happens. Again, no dormitories. Students would find lodging down on their own. The classrooms, probably close enough to what we're used to. All the lessons, of course, taught in Latin. Because these students sometimes are coming from everywhere. You know, the rich son of somebody from someplace is coming into another place for university. Maybe they're from England, but they go to Italy for university. Now, the initial curriculum here is going to be classically based. You're going to have the trivium and the quadrivium, 7 basic subjects. The trivium are the literary arts, grammar, rhetoric, and logic. And we stuck, by the way, and then the quadrivium, the numerical arts, arithmetic, geometry, astronomy, and music. We stuck in the West with that system all the way down to very recently. I mean, you can look at the curriculum at this college 100 years ago, and they're still basically offering that, more than just that, but they're still offering classes in grammar, rhetoric, logic. This stays attached to the curriculum for hundreds and hundreds of years. And of course, there are still classical schools today that still gear around these seven liberal arts. We use the term liberal arts. This is a liberal arts institution here. Well, this is one of it. It's not liberal in terms of liberal conservative. It's the liberating art. The study liberates you in terms of using your mind, things like that. Again, lectures in Latin. Just like we're doing here. I might be lecturing in Latin, students taking notes, as students used to do. Yeah, anyway. You think it's funny, don't you? Not very many textbooks. Textbooks are too expensive. Students would today tell you, well, they still are, so what to do? The textbooks are always too expensive. The degrees are what we still use. Bachelor's degree, master's degree. When you go to a convocation, you see the robes and the hoods and the caps and all this stuff. This is where this comes from. They're doing that back in. I think, Terry, on Friday, you're going to come in regalia. That'll be fun. Hopefully it's nice and hot. Dozens and dozens of universities. Again, look at Italy. The concentration of the universities in Italy. Italy has been running differently all along. We've talked about France and Germany and England and these kinds of places. Italy really runs out of the medieval norm. And we'll talk more about that another time. But that's one of the reasons why it stays urban when Western Europe in general did not. Centers of learning when Western Europe hardly ever did. Yes?
Why the big spread in education? Because this was during the Dark Ages.
Well, we're out of the Dark Ages here. That's one of the reasons why we're out of the Dark Ages is the emphasis on learning and literacy. Now, again, the average person is still no more literate than they had been previously. But at least the opportunity here for education and access to learning and books and degrees and these kinds of things. So caps and gowns and hoods and all of that. Usually, too, when students graduated, they would give gifts to their professors. I'm still trying to get my students to agree to that. They won't sign off for some reason. Maybe students might have to host a banquet. Okay, I'll settle for that. Just take me to McDonald's or someplace. In Spain, sometimes they would host a bullfight, which would be fun. I wouldn't mind going to a bullfight. So anyway, I actually have some students this year who were from Mexico and been to bullfights, so they probably would take me if that's it. So different than what we're used to, but again, something very innovative and new for Western Europe. Now, the people who are involved in this are a thin line of folks. There's a real limited number of people who are going to get educated this way and be in universities and all kind of stuff. What we have, and remember, universities are technically going to be extensions of the church. In most cases, I'm not in Italy. Italy, there'll be some disconnect between church and universities down there. The rest of Europe, a lot of this is about those connections. Now, this is probably where we'll finish today is on popular Christianity. Again, great era in terms of learning and literature and education and degrees and doctors and on and on and on. Most folks didn't experience that. Most folks aren't going to be involved in that. Their world tends to stay pretty simple. Assuming most everybody here is still Christian, the basic Christianity of the day is going to be probably pretty superstitious by our standards. Now remember, non-Christians look at us as pretty superstitious. So we need to be cautious about saying, well, those silly people. Because we believe in things that are hard to prove. And the skeptic says, are you crazy? You believe in what? So just to say the word miracle, anyway. Now we get, again, real scholars here. Peter Abelard, I'm spending time with. You can have the details of his world. Taught theology in Paris. Of course, there's a great story about Peter Abelard and Heloise and their star-crossed love and all these kinds of things. And Dad wasn't happy and sent thugs to castrate. It gets pretty complicated. But anyway, one of the amazing scholars in this time period. For most folks, Christianity, again, you're illiterate. It's about stories. It's about superstitions. It's about things you believe in that, again, to us don't make a lot of sense. There are people who believe, most rural, uneducated people would believe in the things that fill up the pages of most of our fairy tales. They believe in the existence of trolls, nymphs, fairies, things that go bump in the night, something that lives under the bridge, woods you don't want to go into because, there's those kinds of creatures out there. They took that so seriously. There's all kinds of things here in terms of death and dancing in the graveyards and, all that kind of stuff that, again, it just doesn't kind of make much sense to us. Remember, this is a world, too, in which there are plenty of people who are not Christian. If we look at this era as everybody is a Christian, well, hang on, not quite so much. Would you bring up the lights here? I'm going to read something just said. Especially by the 1200s or so, we're getting some pretty secular literature. I think most of what Ben handed out to you this morning is religious and based.
Right, but I am going to bring some secular.
Some secular stuff tomorrow. Oh, the wink, wink, nudge, nudge stuff comes tomorrow. All right, that's something to look forward to. But look, there are always people who are not, they're off the reservation and they don't believe in these things and they don't take their world seriously and they just want to eat, drink, and be merry. What's new? Let me read you a couple things here. Again, this is from the 11th century, actually, from 1100s, 12th century. This was a city poet in Cologne, Germany. 1100s, he wrote this. Down the primrose path I post, straight to Satan's grotto, shunning virtue, doing most things that I ought not to. Little hope of heaven I boast, charmed by pleasure's auto. Since the soul is bound to roast, save the skins, my motto. Plenty of religious people in this world. There are plenty of folks that say, are you serious? Life's got to be more fun than that. There's a great story about, it comes out of the 1200s, it's about 1200, in France. It's called The Story of Nicolette and Aucassin. Aucassin is A-U-C-A-S-S-I-N. This is a Romeo and Juliet kind of thing. They're star-crossed lovers. He comes from a wealthy family. She comes from nobody. She's actually a captive of war. No station in life. They meet somewhere. He falls in love with her. His dad said, "What are you, nuts? You have to marry somebody in your own station. Somebody equal to you. You're not going to marry down like that. By the way, if you marry down like that, you're going to go to hell." And Aucassin responds to what his father says. And it goes like this. What have I got to do in paradise? I seek not to enter there, provided that I have Nicolette, my most sweet friend, whom I love so much. For none go to paradise except such people as I will tell you. Old priests go there, and old cripples, and those maimed wretches that grovel all day and all night before the altars, and those folk clad in old threadbare cloaks and in old rags. This is not young St. Francis. And tatters, who are naked and barefoot and full of sores and die of hunger and thirst and cold and miseries. These go to paradise. With them I'll have nothing to do. But to hell I go. For to hell go the fine clerks and the fine knights who have died in tourneys and grand wars, and the brave soldiers and the noblemen. With those I will go. There too go the fair and gracious ladies who have friends 2 or 3 beside their husbands. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And there go the gold and the silver and all the fine furs. And there too go the minstrels and the poets and the kings of this world. With those I will go, so that I have Nicolette, my most sweet friend, with me. Well, that's a man in love. He was just happy as a clam to go to heaven. Plenty of religious people here. But you know what? Just like you're at college. You want to find nonsense, you can find nonsense. Okay, let's do, yes, ma'am.
I was just going to say one thing that's of interest. People are interested in cathedrals. Pillars of the Earth by Ken Follett.
Ken Follett, yeah, his series.
Awesome book. And he even tells how to do it.
Yeah, she's recommended Ken Follett's series, which is a good series. Let's do relics here real fast. I've got just a couple minutes here. Relics are so out of our faith tradition, it's just hard for us to grasp taking these things seriously. Right? I mean, with relics, of course, you mentioned earlier, if you built the church, the cathedral, you were supposed to have a relic in it for it to be dedicated officially anyway. So, to be relics just everywhere. Lots of them, of course. The idea about a relic is that it has its own holiness, it has its own sense of connection. Maybe something in the New Testament, Old Testament, somebody, you talk about burying St. Francis under, 1,000 layers of stuff. Well, part of that is because people sometimes would take bodies like that and then they'd sell the bones. Because this was St. Francis. He's worth something. He's worth more, he's like Jimmy Stewart. You're worth more dead than alive. Here's what one writer says about this. The most cherished relics of all were those associated with Christ and the Virgin Mary. Since both were believed to have ascended bodily into heaven, relics of the usual sort were ruled out. But there remained pieces of their clothing, fragments of the true cross, vials of Christ's blood, and the Virgin's milk. Christ's baby teeth, his umbilical cord, and the foreskin removed at his circumcision. Reading Abbey, founded in southern England in the 1120s, had acquired hundreds of relics by the end of the 12th century, including 29 relics of Christ, 6 of the Virgin Mary, 19 of the Old Testament patriarchs and prophets, and 14 of the apostles. That is a nice collection. As a result of its avid collecting, Reading became a prosperous pilgrimage center. Yet it was merely one of many. Chartres has a different to doubt in France. It had the Virgin Mary's tunic. Canterbury had the body of St. Thomas a Becket. Santiago de la Compostela had the bones of St. James the Apostle, except his arm, which was at Reading. Paris acquired Christ's thorn of crowns after it had been taken from Constantinople following the Fourth Crusade. So they're stealing. Remember reading about one monastery that had a rival monastery. And these guys had a relic that this monastery wanted. They got one of the monks to unveil himself to join the other monastery. And he, after 10 years, he was made I forget the title, but he was basically the guy responsible for the relics. Well, this worked out. He stole the relic and took it back to the monastery. So you got monks stealing relics from monks. This is so counterintuitive to us. We just don't give any validity to these things. You know full well, we're talking about Luther on Friday. His great protector, Frederick the Wise, one of the electors of Saxony, had a gigantic collection of relics. Hundreds and hundreds of relics. And he reached the point where he figured out, these aren't worth anything, are they? No! Money he'd spent.
All they had to do is create a relic, we just call it a relic.
Yeah, there's a lot of fraud, a lot of fake, these kinds of things. Now, one more thing on this page is going to be the cult of Mary, which we know in the Catholic Church that Mary is venerated. We sometimes say worship, they would say venerated, and there's maybe a thin line in between. The Mary cult basically just, again, elevates Mary as she had not been previously, I think. There's all kinds of stories, and I'll finish with this story. All kinds of stories about her. Of course, they're extra biblical stories, because we know so little about Mary from Scripture. One of the stories has a nun in a convent, a young nun, who gets disenchanted and decides, this was a mistake, I shouldn't be here, I don't want to be a nun anymore. And so she asks the Mother Superior, I'm going to be leaving. And she's given permission to leave. She leaves, she goes out to the real world, gets in all kinds of trouble. Sin follows her everywhere, just a crazy, crazy life. She just winds up absolutely destitute and decides, I made a mistake, I need to go back to the monastery or to the nunnery. She goes back and she's going to beg permission to come back, beg for forgiveness for leaving in the first place. When she gets back to the nunnery, she realizes she had not been missed because the Virgin Mary had come down and taken her place in her absence, so that when she came back and filled her role once more, and Mary steps out of the equation. Well, that's a great story, isn't it? Which is reminiscent of what story, by the way? The prodigal son. It's the same basic story. But it's just one more way of explaining to people, see how important Mary was, and see how important Mary is in your life now. And again, that's way beyond our faith tradition. This is where the Catholic Church goes down roads that we don't get, that we're not comfortable with, that we think is beyond Scripture. So here's what it is. All right, we got stuff. Real fast.
When we were in Israel once, we were at a place there that was touted as where John the Baptist was headed.
Yeah.
And I told the guys, they told me the same thing down the street, and they said, this is the first beheading.
Yeah. I think I read there are 4 churches in Europe that have the head of John the Baptist. And one of them is an infant's head.
Oh,
Hang on. This was John the Baptist as a baby. You just have to think about it. Then,
Every Catholic church has a relic in it.
yeah. Yeah, this is still important. This is not a theology of the spade away. This is still important. All right, go in.